Hello, everyone. Welcome back to a Podcast, episode 36. Today, we have a very special guest joining our usual cast of hosts here. We have Soup, or Eli Sherman. We marched with him back during our marching band days. I believe you marched tuba. So go ahead and
Yeah,
introduce
by
yourself.
by accident.
Good soup.
Yeah. So my name's Soup or Eli. You can really pick which one you want. I still answer to both, depending on the crowd. I marched for 4 years, 2013, 2017. Basically learned tuba on the fly for 4 years. Tried out for drumline, and it's literally what they said to me when I tried out for drumline. They said, "So I don't think we have enough spots for you, but you aren't fat and unathletic. Do you want to carry a tuba?" And I said, absolutely. And the rest is history. Brandon Folks taught me how to play tuba, and so did Baloo, if you guys know Papa Bear. And then, Bobby Parr, too. Those are probably the three biggest teachers I had. Diesel, for starting out. And then, I'm a huge football fan, obviously. It's why we're here today. So I'm just happy to be here. Glad you guys thought of me to come on, and looking forward to it.
Awesome. Well, glad to have you. Well, also, as your usual host today, again, my name is Jason, and we also have Wyatt down below my face here, and Griffin to my right or left, depending on how this gets exported. Say hi, you two.
Hey, what's up, crowd?
Yo, you know me.
Well, awesome. Well, everyone, thank you for coming to episode 36 today. We're getting ever closer. I want to mention we'll probably have a 42.0 special, and not soon after that, maybe 69.
Gotta get there.
Yep, we're slowly getting there. But today we'll be recapping our most recent football game at Colorado, the Buffaloes. Then preview our homecoming game this upcoming Saturday against the Bowling Green Hawks?
Falcons.
I'm gonna get
Orange Birds.
Orange Birds. And then we'll go on from there. We'll have any discussion points, questions, or takes after that to wrap up the podcast. So, gentlemen, we stomped the Colorado Buffaloes 30-0 in essentially pretty much a shutout. No, it is a shutout. Our first shutout since was it the 90s? A Power 5 program on the road?
70s.
70s.
Yeah,
It goes way back since last time we.
First shutout of a Power 5 team on the road by Minnesota since Illinois in 1977.
Damn. But some key stats. So let me pull up the box score here. So on our offense and defense, Tanner Morgan was 11 of 17 for 164 yards, with 9.6 average with a QBR rating of 80.6. Then at tailbacks, Trey Potts led the way at 26 carries, 121 yards, 4.7 yards average with 3 tutties. Amazing day for Potts. Then behind him, some names I didn't expect to see to play that Saturday. Marquise Irving, or Bucko, because his original nickname Bucky sounded too close to Bucky the Badger.
That's so funny. I love that.
So they renamed the Bucko. Irvin had 15 carries for 89 yards with 5.9 yards average. And he did had a burst out to 28 yards in that one carry during the game. Then behind him, Kai Thomas, as we're all aware of, he was that 4-star recruit we had, I think, a year or two ago. Had 7 carries for 66 yards, 9.4 yards average, and ran in for a touchdown in the fourth quarter. Essentially garbage time, but, damn, Kai Thomas.
I laughed in the fourth quarter because it looked like he pulled a Daniel Jones when he just had a phantom trip.
Yeah, I mean, he's. I think Kai Thomas has just gone ahead and Wally pipped Bryce Williams and Cam Wiley.
Yeah, because looking at the rest of the stats here, our fourth best rusher was only Bryce Williams, who had 1 carry for 1 yard.
It's a fumble too.
Yep,
And
the fumble. Then we had Blaze Andrews. Somehow he had a. Oh yeah, he recovered the fumble. for the 1 yard. And then Tanner Morgan had 3 carries of 1 yard, so essentially trying to not get either losing yards by being sacked or just running the ball with using his legs. But that's it for our rushing. But then for our receivers, Chris Ottman-Bell returned healthy. Finally, had 4 receptions for 79 yards, 19.8 yards average. Dalen Wright was second best with only 1 reception for 39 yards. Daniel Jackson was 4 receptions for 39 yards. Then Cole Keeft, our tight end, at 1 reception at 4 yards, and then Bucko Irving at 1 reception for 3 yards. So essentially, our receivers did what they needed to do pretty much for this game. We just ran the ball like hell. And in terms of, we forced 2 fumbles against the Buffaloes. Justice Harris and Bishop McDonald got the recoveries. Oh, my bad. Correction. Wait, am I reading this right? We had 2 fumbles that game?
4, yeah.
One of them was Jordan off the sack or the TFL from Lewis.
Yep.
And the other one was the muff punt that
counts as a fumble.
Got it.
Perfect. And the one bit Donald covered.
Yep. Got it. Thanks. And then on the defensive side of the ball, Jack Gibbons led the team in tackles, 5 solo tackles and 1 tackle for loss. Then second is Mariano Marin, 4 total tackles. Thomas Rush, 3, including 2 sacks on the day. Then Tyler Newbin, 3 tackles total. Boye Mafe, 2, but he also had 2 sacks against Brandon Lewis as well. So we had 4 sacks that day, which is great to see after seeing our pass defense not getting any sacks or pressure during the last 2 games. No,
and they weren't like.
Oh, go ahead.
They weren't like coverage sacks either, right? Like they weren't really like from prolonged play through coverage sacks. I mean, you saw a lot of like. I really noticed they were twisting a lot and stunting on the line with like guys like Thomas Rush and stuff, and I thought that was some creativity with the defensive line that we didn't see the first couple games, and it looks like that really kind of helped them find their footing because, I mean, this defensive line is stacked with experience and athletes right now, and there's no reason you shouldn't be leveraging that kind of athleticism and experience against some of these younger, lesser opponents, you could say. Like, games that you're supposed to win, you should still be trying to pull out these kind of tricks against those opponents, in my opinion.
And I don't even think that there were necessarily tricks on defense. I don't like watching Thomas Rush's sacks. You look at like he's lined up as a end rusher, and then he ends up just cutting inside and going straight up the middle, where they had absolutely no one home. So I think part of that is just the great scheming of Joe Rossi.
Yeah.
And just the knowledge and skill that Thomas Rush has had on this team for the last few years, and know where to make a play.
Yeah, did a really good job of taking a step or two to make it look like he was going to be rushing upfield before changing direction.
Yep. And key thing too, I listened to the radio broadcast from Mike Grimm and the K-Fan network. They mentioned they talked to Joe Rossi that he actually wanted to simplify what the defense had to do, which is, I think, the right call because our team, even though we have a lot of great veteran players and athletes on the roster, especially on the defensive side of the ball, they're not like your Carter Coughlin, Kamal Martin, or Anton Winfield Jr., who like a high football IQ as well. So I think when they said Joe Rossi wanted to simplify the defense and make it more simpler, especially for the younger guys playing in the rotations, I think that was what I saw. Like they played more simple. They knew what they were doing. They used their skill sets or their strength, as you mentioned, their Soup. And we essentially saw, I say, one of the greatest defensive performances from this team, and we're only 3 games into the season. So I think, we have a trajectory where we can keep going up and better with this current defense.
Yeah, this game is what they need. The defense needed to get their confidence back because Colorado was never going to necessarily be a flashy offense, and they showed that they weren't. It was pretty bland play calling by all means, but I mean now you look at them and you should go into Bowling Green being ready for the pass attack that they're about to bring.
Yeah, and I mean, if you look back at the Colorado game, I don't even think it was like vanilla play calling or anything. It's just like, what else are you supposed to do? You know what I mean? Like they were getting dominated in the trenches on both sides of the football, really, and just, I mean, how do you call? What do you call in that situation when you're just getting whipped? You know, in the trenches on offense, it's you try and call, you know, ease of execution plays and stuff like that, but at the end of the day, if you're getting outplayed, you know, if you lose that battle at the line of scrimmage, you're basically giving up like 3 yards of play. If you know, 2 or 3 yards of play just in push, right? So I feel like it was more like the defense just took it to them against Colorado, and it was less of a, like, yeah, Colorado's offense was really bad, but I don't think it helped that the Gophers were just all over them all game.
Mm-hmm.
And I wouldn't like their rushing attack was our rushing attack was good, but I wasn't even necessarily say it was great because, God, we were still like 2 for 11 or like 3 for 12 on third downs. Like we were just running it because we knew we had possession and we just eat the clock. Like at that point, there's no point in getting a first down when you're like at the. I mean, there still is a point, but when you're on the when you're on the opposing team's 40 and you've just been eating 6 minutes of clock, like it.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I also think with like PJ Fleck's record, like what he's shown at Minnesota, like you want to convert on third down, but I feel like those stats with PJ need to be rolled up into like third and fourth down conversions because they have such a propensity to go for it on fourth and short, basically less than 4th and 5. If they're in anywhere remotely close to plus territory, they're probably going for it. And yep. I love that. I think that's great. It just does sometimes make like those third down conversion stats are a little deceiving at times.
So very skewed towards not converting. But if you think about it, a lot of those drives, like I think of Ohio, say, oh, well, we're 4th and 2 on our own in our own zone, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then Mo just ran it down the field perfectly.
Yeah.
Like, open field, got into their zone past the 50-yard line, and just like brought the stadium back to life because they were up like double digits. We were down by 1, I believe, or 1 digit, and just to be just that momentum breaker. That's PJ's formula. And then of course, if we go back to 19 where we beat Auburn, we made sorry. We had 2 gutsy 4th down calls too, like one in the end zone when Seth Green finally threw it in for a touchdown at the end zone there, and we couldn't run it in with Mo. And then Bryce Witham with the one-handed catch to essentially seal the game against Auburn and winning that game with a single score. You know, I think that's the credit to PJ's style of offense or what his teams want to do is, you know, if we need to use all 4 downs to convert, we'll use all 4 downs. So far, yeah, you're right. It does skew that number a lot.
Yeah, and I mean, I think PJ and the offensive staff expect 4 to 5 yards a carry from this running backs room that they have that's just so incredibly deep. And then you've got one of the more experienced offensive lines in the country, and I think they just believe in the execution there and know that they're going to go ahead and get those yards. And if they don't, the way their defense was playing yesterday, I don't think it really mattered.
Yep. But I need to cover this next stats though before we move on, guys. I know it's going to hurt Wyatt a lot more. Special teams. Matthew Trickett was only 1 for 3 on field goals, 33% completion percentage. He left the room. But only 3 for 4 on extra points. So very rough day for special teams. Then Mark Crawford had 4 punts that day too, average 43.3 yards, but his long was 57. So it was a good day for this Crawford.
Yeah, I mean, he boomed one and then he absolutely shanked one.
But hey, average. It's all about the average, right?
Yep. Sorry, Wyatt.
I can live with a 43-yard average punting. It's better than we've seen in some seasons. So
don't want to repeat 2020 with the walk-on kicker or punter, right?
God.
We don't talk about him.
Okay. Moving on. But I will note though, guys, I rewatched as many highlights as I can, and I even hopped on to the Colorado Buffaloes podcasts and videos, of their media. Um, and some of them noticed that Brandon Lewis, again, he's a true freshman quarterback, but he did miss a lot of wide open receivers. Like we did so well on the defensive line, just getting pressure that, you know, Lewis couldn't throw the ball, which is great, or he was, being
He's seeing
reactionary.
ghosts. Seeing
Yeah,
ghosts.
yeah, seeing ghosts. But there were moments when I looked at the film again and looking correlating what these guys are saying from Colorado, like their beat writers. There were some blown coverages. Like there was like our corners were like literally 5, 7 yards behind the receiver on like slants or other routes. I was like, I if this was again, this is Colorado, it's okay because they didn't get to convert. Like again, I think total yards wise, with the negative yardage as well, only 63 yards on total offense versus
Yeah.
ours at 441. But still, I'm worried when we get to Big Ten play. For example, like in Maryland, we got to deal with Talia Tagovailoa. I don't know who's Purdue's quarterback, but Purdue's quarterback is also doing pretty well.
Maybe Jake Plummer, I believe.
Jake Plummer is still back. Uh, I know we joke around about this guy, Spencer Petras, but when he needs to throw, he'll convert those too.
Had a rough year.
Yeah, and then Graham Mertz, I know he's not having a great season as well, but Graham Mertz, like if he sees that opening or wide open receiver, like they're going to convert. So that's my concern is that the secondary is a little concerning for me because also we didn't leave the game with any interceptions too, and there are moments where like, you know, perfect moments to pick them off, but that didn't happen this game. So that's just my concern going into the Bowling Green, who has a pass heavy attack,
Mm-hmm.
and then we reopen the Big Ten season again with Purdue at Purdue in West Lafayette.
Yeah, I mean, I think I would like to see those plays where those receivers come open, like you said, like 5 to 7 yards downfield, because I think at a certain point in the game, they just kind of start playing off. Just no big plays, right? Like, don't let them back into the game with a 30, 40-yarder, right? And you also don't want to give up the PI that's a spot foul, or that's 15 yards or whatever.
Yeah.
And then it's just I think that was more of like a scheme thing towards the end of the game where they knew it was already in the bag, and you just don't want to let them in at all by giving up one of those big plays, in my opinion. So I share those concerns about the secondary, especially from a playmaking standpoint, because it's felt like, aside from Coney Durr, I think Coney Durr has played really well so far. Aside from Coney Durr and Tyler Newbin, nobody's really making any plays in the secondary, right? Like there was multiple times during that game where I was sitting there saying to me, my buddy Xander came over to watch the game, shout out him, and I would just say to him, "Oh man, that's a nice tackle by Coney Durr in space. Oh, there's another one, right? Oh, nice breakup by Coney." Like I kept saying that throughout the game. He's had a really strong start to this season here, I think. And, Newbin had the interception a week ago. And I think outside of that, like we haven't really seen, anyone really make plays in the secondary. You finally have people making plays off the defensive line. You've got your Thomas Rushes, your boy Maffe's in the backfield now. Are you going to convert those pressures now into turnovers? And you need someone. I think about the long touchdown to Miami, Ohio, had to keep it close towards the end of the game where Terrell Smith was on the receiver's hip and just doesn't make the play. It's like, what happened there? I feel a lot of those things sometimes. Our guys are in good coverage positions or okay coverage positions. It's just not a lot of plays being made.
I think we need Coney Durr to step up as a leader of the defense now, because you had the Antoine Winfield, who was like a natural leader, and he made everyone else around him better. We need Coney Durr to step up. He's the guy that can make plays now. I want him to kind of assume the role as a leader. Someone has to take charge of that defense.
Mm-hmm. Yep. But I think that's what I had. Like, I know, again, we stomped them 30-0. It was a overwhelming good victory. Like, we rushed the ball very well, passed when needed to. Defense played great. I'm just nitpicking at this point, like, because like this team can improve. Like, I know PJ says that a lot. Like, it was a great game, but we're gonna look back at the tape and then try to go 1-0 in the Bowling Green season.
Yeah.
I think I quoted him that, right?
Yeah. And I think it's just that like the West is so wide open this year that especially if you look at the Gophers schedule, if they execute and you win the games that on paper you're supposed to win, you're sitting pretty come the last couple games of the season to be in real contention for the West. And I think a lot of us as traumatized Gopher fans over the years just are waiting for that trap game to come up, right? And you just want to see the team put together a consistent performance on both sides of the ball. And you could say that they did that against Colorado. Offensively, they did well. I didn't think they were as consistent as maybe the box score says they were on offense against Colorado. And I would like to see them put a complete game together because I thought they played better on offense against Miami, if we're being honest. So I'd like to see them put a complete game together this weekend.
All right, and I think that's perfect then. Let's roll over onto the preview for Bowling Green then. All right, perfect. So then next up, it's homecoming week, gentlemen. For us, home game versus the Bowling Green Falcons. I don't know why I said Hawks earlier, but whatever. Right now, according to ESPN, it's going to be airing on ESPNU. So unfortunately, if you're a Gopher fan that does not have that, well, can't do much about that. 11 a.m. kickoff. The ESPN FPI is giving the Gophers a 97.8% chance to win this game. With the spread currently at -31 favoring the Gophers, with the over-under being at 51. And I'll start off saying I don't like a big spread or a majority FPI. So I'm thinking the game is going to be closer than it should be.
Yeah, I mean, the Gophers are the kings of keeping games closer than they should be, right? I mean, you can, and that's sometimes it's a good thing when you're playing teams like Ohio State, where we kept the game closer than it probably should have been for a while. But when you play lesser opponents, it becomes an issue.
Yeah, I think Zoom makes a really good point there, and I think a lot of it comes to playing to the level of our opponent. But also, I look back at the Miami of Ohio game, and a lot of people look at that and say, "Oh, the Gophers should have absolutely killed them. Why was that game as close as it was?" And I keep looking back at it and saying, "Well, PJ was doing what he needed to do to get the next man up ready. He was feeding Potts, and you look at what Potts went and did at Colorado."
Yeah, I would. Yeah, I would push back against that a little bit because, I mean, Potts has a pretty notable injury history, especially with his ankle issues, and I don't think that 30 carries a game is sustainable for him, and I really didn't like that against Miami. I was hoping to see him get, if he's going to get 30 touches, 20 passes, 5 to 8 touches in the pass game is what I was kind of hoping for, something like that. I just think with his injury history, and luckily you're very deep at the position, but I mean, you don't. Trey looks dynamic. I mean, he's your home run guy, and you just need to protect him. And I didn't like using him so heavily against Miami, Ohio.
I mean, I definitely get not wanting to use him 30 touches a game every single game all season. I agree with you that it's not sustainable, but I do like the idea to say, hey, we're going to put some confidence in you, and we're going to put the ball in your hands a lot of times this game to make sure you're ready to go now that Mo's out.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yep. And I will say too, the Colorado can also help that same running back room too, because uh, Bucko Irving and then Kai Thomas pretty much I think nearly supplanted Bryce Williams and Cam Wiley for running back 2 and running back 3 spots. Because I know you guys remember when PJ first came in 2017 as our head coach, he loved what Glenn Mason, a former head coach for the Gophers, said. You always got to have a pair and a spare. And at that time, we had Shannon and Rodney with Kobe McCrary as the spare. And then in subsequent years, you had Rodney with Mo, uh, with Bryce Williams in this 18 season when we got the Axe back. And then 19, it was actually not a pair and a spare. We had like a trio of Shannon, Rodney, and Mo always available during those games and like
Mm-hmm.
staying fresh. And then of course 2020 happened, and then Mo was that bell cow of a running back in the limited actions we had that season. But seeing Kai Thomas and Bucko run the way they did against Colorado, I know again their defense at that point was gas as fourth quarter at the end of the game there. But I think if I had to say a pair and a spare moving forward, at least again a small sample size from the one game, Bucko and Trey as your pair, and then the spare as Kai. But then you can interchange them between those spots. So I think we have a new three-headed monster potentially, assuming they can polish themselves throughout the
Mm-hmm.
season and just get better from there.
Yeah, and even before you guys got to the U, it was David Cobb, Rodney Smith, and Shannon Brooks before that too.
David Cobb.
Yeah, David Cobb.
And let's not forget who's leading this entire crew of backs. We got running back coach Kenny Burns. Let's put some
respect,
other effect on his name. Like,
I am so shocked this man has not been poached from the coaching staff.
Either that or that PJ hasn't even given him like some sort of like assistant or like associate, whatever, like promotion within.
Associate head coach type thing.
I think he is.
I think he is.
Oh, is he?
He's the run game.
He definitely got a pay
too.
bump.
Yeah.
But I think these guys like playing for him too. But you think this season it's like, okay, we had like Mo, Preston Jellin, Jason Williamson. Like these are all notable guys that did really, really well before they got here. And it's like, okay, Jason Williamson's out, Preston Jellin has the injury, and like you're still bringing up like Kai Thomas.
Yeah, you're like 5'6" deep at running back. It's nuts.
And then you see all these commentators like, oh, like this guy looks good, and it's like, well, who do you think's developing all these people behind these guys? It's like your day might show up earlier than you think if you play for the University of Minnesota Golden Gophers. So you better be ready, and Kenny makes them ready.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I'm absolutely shocked he has not been poached from this coaching staff because I mean, the consistency. I mean, it's not even like the high level. The high level play is obviously impressive, but to sustain that in the way they have in that running backs room is ridiculous.
And to keep them around too.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I think the only mainly the losses that we had during the PJ Fleck era at Minnesota was our losses at the defensive back coaches that we had. I know we had a guy from Oregon, then a guy from another program.
Yep.
So, primarily that position has been a turnover every year for PJ staff. And then recently, on the offensive side, I think we've only lost Kirk Shiraka, our former quarterbacks coach and offensive coordinator, who was integral to that 2019 season's offense.
Yeah, you're thinking of Maurice Lindquist.
Yeah, Maurice Lindquist, yes. But no, yeah. Kirk Shiraka was, I think, one of another key piece as well that left. Mike Sanford Jr. took over. I think Kirk is jobless now, is he? Or he got fired from Penn State after the COVID season. Looks like his offense didn't gel with Sean Clifford and James Franklin's.
I don't know if anyone's offense. I don't know if anyone's offense is really going to help Sean Clifford.
For some reason, I think Kirk is in West Virginia.
Okay,
but I could be wrong.
He is currently with West Virginia. He's an analyst, offensive analyst at West Virginia right now. And Mo Lindquist, that was the other person, big name from the coaching staff because, that was the guy who's developing those young DBs that they were they were putting into the league for a little bit, and that was he had a job with the Cowboys for a couple of years, and now he's the head coach at Buffalo.
Yep. Kudos to him. PJ said it best. He wants to give his coaches the opportunities and the chances to move up the ranks. So, kudos to those coaches. I will mention too, we had the 1-year stint for Ed Warner for the offensive line as well. And even though we didn't see tangible results that year with Ed Warner at that position, Brian Callahan, our current offensive line coach, who was with PJ at Western Michigan at the O-line before moving to tight ends, was learned a lot from Ed Warner, because Ed Warner essentially is a O-line guru during his time at Ohio State and prior. And it's the same guys that they developed in the current roster. Connor Olson, who's currently I think a super senior because he has another year eligibility.
Yeah, he
taking.
is.
Blaze Andrews, who played a lot during Ed Warner's time here, and of course our additions with Daniel Faalele, Curtis Dunlap from IMG Academy, then John Michael Schmidt, a name that I didn't think would pop out on that O-line. I know I used to bitch about this guy, Sam Schluter.
John Michael Schmitz came from Western Michigan with PJ.
Yeah, and I before I got cut off there, Eli, it was
Sorry.
John Michael Schmidt, not John, Sam Schluter. I used to bitch about this guy in the past about his poor play, and then he resurrected his status in 19 and after. So with essentially 6 offensive linemen, and even some of the guys that played during 2020, because I know PJ, the Wisconsin game, we barely had enough linemen to play that Wisconsin game. We were short on linemen and special teamers, and somehow redshirt or true freshmen, I forgot what their names were, started for us, and they actually played pretty well and kept Tanner mostly clean in the pocket, at least what they can manage to do. Yeah. So I think, despite the turnovers on at staff that we talked about, the key names that we just talked about, overall this staff is saying Matt Simon, that's now a co-offensive coordinator, wide receivers coach Brian Callahan, Kenny Burns, of course PJ himself. Then on defense, Joe Rossi, who was linebackers before going to defensive coordinator. Who else was else on that side of the ball? Rob Wenger. I know
special teams.
Yeah, I know Laurent hates Rob with a passion because of how there's some blown special teams coverages and kicking problems. But Rob Wenger's been with PJ for years as well as special teams.
Yeah, I just think with Wenger, it's PJ raves about him, goes out of his way to rave about him in all these press conferences, and they're just not consistent on special teams. And I think that's where the frustration comes in. Is you hear PJ talk about how much he loves Rob Wenger, and they're just totally inconsistent in his phase.
Yep. But other than that,
Joe Harris-Simiak too.
Yeah, Harris-Simiak, who actually was a head coach at Division III or Division II, coming to that's a coach defensive backs. I was surprised. Yeah. I thought this guy would get a head coaching stint at a Group of 5 program, and this comes in to be an assistant for PJ. And it was funny too. The reason he came here was because he has a connection with Joe Rossi. And then of course Chad Wilt, the defensive line coach that we took from Cincinnati, where I remember in 2019 or 2020, Cincinnati had a monster defensive line, and they still do today. They took Indiana to the wire, right? White Riot.
I mean, Indiana pushed them hard, but Cincy's a really great football program out there right now. And it's hard to deny that there's a lot of talent there. If there's a Group of 5 program to watch out for this year, that's the one.
Yeah, but great staff. Great staff, and I'm actually, I was happy when he signed the contract with PJ, especially with the bigger buyout in case he gets poached by other programs. It was just raising the salaries of his assistants. Because if you look at Clemson, I use them as an example, but Clemson, their current offensive defensive coordinators are still with Dabo. I'm surprised they never left, because they're paid very well at Clemson to keep them there. So I know why
would you leave?
Yeah.
Where would you go?
You're a very, very successful program. That's where you want to be.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm just happy with the current staff that we have right now. Like we have a great staff, majority wise, that we all like.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, they're doing great things with our current roster
Yeah.
that we have so far.
And before we move on from the staff, I looked it up. We were talking here, and the head recruiter on every single one of the running backs that's on the roster right now, Cam Wiley, or not Cam Wiley, what is it? Potts, everybody. Potts down to Bucky Irving and Kai Thomas, all recruited head recruiter Kenny Burns. So not only is he a really good coach, but he's consistently, finding talent, right? Because I mean, Ibrahim's a 3-star running back coming out of school.
Yep, out of Ohio,
right?
the same state as Ohio State, and then Kai Thomas was a 4-star out of Kentucky.
Yeah,
Kansas, I think actually.
Oh, Kansas. My bad.
He was Kansas Player of the Year or something.
Starts with a K. Close enough.
Yeah, but yeah, I mean, he's really identifying talent and continuing to just pump talent out of that running backs room, and it's just so crazy.
Yep. And I will mention too, when Griffin and I went to Rutgers in 2019 for that game, Griffin and I talked a lot how a good number of PJ's current staff, not just coaches, but like player personnel, administrative staff, like those guys, like some of his director of player personnel, and some of those guys, they were connected through Rutgers during Greg Schiano's first stint at Rutgers. Because remember, PJ was an assistant coach with Schiano at Rutgers as wide receiver coach and recruiting coordinator. And Griffin, I noted, like, I think one of the directors, Griffin,
Yeah.
was an
Wilson.
interim head coach. Is like, what's your name? And what's your question?
And Norris Wilson is the same man when he was head coach at Rutgers. And he's the exact same person today. If you were to walk up to him, he is a great man.
Yeah, so like I know we mentioned like Kenny Burns being a great coach and the current coaching staff, but not just the coaching staff, but like the administrative staff. And I think PJ's who's the short guy that's always telling PJ like his it was his assistant, no, not assistant, his GM has been with PJ for many years as well. So not just like the coaching staff, but his entire other staff is GM, director of player personnel, and many other people in those roles for player development, and his strength staff too, and medical staff have primarily came from his time at Western Michigan or way before when he first started his stint with Greg Schiano at Rutgers too. And I know Schiano did take some of our staff members from PJ back to Rutgers when he got rehired, but like that connection though hasn't failed PJ yet, and so far we've had a great program so far, especially what happened after that 2016 season with the scandals, the change in athletic directors, and just the turmoil in Gopher athletics at that time. So I'm just happy that this staff is, in general, coaches, administrative staff, everyone is on the same boat with PJ. All right. Anything else about the staff for the Gophers?
I just want everyone to stay.
We all do. But looking ahead, so Bowling Green, I want to read a few key stats. So the Bowling Green Falcons have lost 4 of the last 5 matchups, including this season and the last couple games of last season. So their most recent game on the 18th was a win against the Murray State Racers, winning 27-10. And then their 2 other losses on 9/11 and 9/2 were losses to Southern Alabama, 19-22, and then Tennessee 6-38. Prior to that, from last season during the first COVID year, lost to Akron 3-31, and lost to University of Ohio, the Bobcats, 10-52.
Look, we've played Ohio before. If they can If Ohio can win 52-10, we should be able to have a more than
True.
Yeah,
chance.
Ohio put up a 50-piece.
They put a 50-piece nugs on them.
So looking ahead, their quarterback for Bowling Green, Matt McDonald, is 70 of 98 for 716 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 1 interception. Versus our Tanner Morgan's 33 of 59 for 481 yards and 3 touchdowns. Their lead running back is Nick Mosley. Had so far this season 17 carries for 74 yards, no touchdowns. And of course, our very own Trey Potts being our lead rusher at 70 carries, 333 yards, and 5 tutties. And then their lead receiver for Bowling Green is Austin Osborne. Only has 21 receptions for 153 yards. And then, of course, our leading passer, our wide receiver is Dalen Wright, currently at 9 receptions for 169 yards and 2 touchdowns, stats wise. But in terms of like game stats, Bowling Green's currently averaging 291 yards for the season on offense, 238.7 on passing, and 53 yards on rushing. And then their defense allowed 349 yards this season. Pretty even, 177.7 on passing and 171 on rushing. Yep.
Man, Trey Potts almost has as many touchdowns as the entire Bowling Green team this year.
Yeah. Man, what'd you say the spread is? 30 plus?
31.
What's the total?
51.
51.
At 51, that sounds pretty good.
Yeah. I was surprised by the big over under, but I was like, okay. If it's okay, then let's go to the keys of the game. I know PJ said it in his press conferences lately. You know, I know a lot of fans and other beat writers are like thinking there's gonna be a beat down on Bowling Green, but of course PJ is keeping it not that way. Again, he wants to go 1-0 in the Bowling Green season, praising them what they've been able to do, especially on offense, and they have a pretty good passing attack. Again, almost 240 yards average each game. So it's going to be a big test on our D line, like you said, Soup, earlier when we talked about the post Colorado stuff, but also test our secondary too, because this is going to be where we got to stop the pass and try to make them beat us on the run.
Yeah, I definitely think it's bigger on the secondary than it is our D line. I mean, our defensive line, I don't think has to do much since they only their total rushing yards is very, very little. And I mean, if the D line wants to pressure the quarterback, by all means, but it better not compromise the coverage in the secondary.
Yep.
Yeah. I think Bowling Green's going to try and get this defense of ours moving east-west a lot across the field, because I definitely think there is room to exploit the Gophers defense in that area, because for me, I think our biggest key to the game on defense, at least, is going to be tackling. And I know it sounds like elementary to say, oh, well, you got to tackle, but it's specifically the secondary. I think there's going to be a lot of those short, quick, behind the line of scrimmage passes. And the secondary is really going to need to step up and shed their blocks and make some clean tackles, or at least stand up until your backers can come in and help you clean up. Because if you start missing tackles and letting them pop off big play, 10, 15-yard screens or whatever, tunnels and whatnot, then you're going to get into an issue, and they're going to get you back on their heels. But the secondary, I think, really needs to be sound this weekend.
Anything from you, Wyatt? Any keys to the game for you?
I think that Stu makes a really good point here. He says, like, obviously it's elementary. Tackling is the most fundamental block of defense. But like, yeah, we're at a point where we need to know what our secondary is really capable of. And Bowling Green is going to be a team that's going to put that to the test. They're not a run-focused team; they're a pass-focused team. So it's a lot of this week comes to seeing how our secondary holds up against a team that's going to try to get them shaken. Really, it's going to be locking down the secondary, and I think seeing what we can do building rush from last week is also extremely important on the defensive side of the ball. If our defensive line can help out our secondary by putting pressure on the quarterback, maybe we get to finally see some more players capitalize on those opportunities.
Yeah.
Yep. Well, if you guys are okay with it, I'm going to mention one more thing. So far, our kicker, Matthew Trick, has been perfect at home. So I hope he gets out of his yips special teams wise, but that's all I have.
I'm personally, I'm not worried about Trickett. Personally, I think you see a lot of faith, especially from PJ and the coaching staff. And we all know PJ's a very conservative coach when it comes to game strategy, and he trotted him back out there after both of those misses. So they believe in him, and I'm really not that worried about him. I think kicking in Colorado is weird. The altitude, I think, affects the ball more than the layman like that we are can really understand from like a nuanced kicking perspective. And then when he came in, he drilled the other kick too. Like that last one they put him in for, he piped it right down the middle. So
Yep.
he clearly adjusted. I think his confidence is good, and I think that's like 80% of kicking. So I'm really personally not too worried about him. I'm more worried about punting and our ability to flip the field. But hopefully we don't even have to punt this weekend. That would be the ideal scenario.
Yeah, hopefully. But other than that, let's get some predictions in. So, Eli, since you're the guest of the podcast, what is your predictions for this game?
I'm going to go Gophers 38.
Ooh.
Bowling Green 13.
All right.
Close to mine.
That's really close.
What's yours, Griffin?
I was going to do 37 for the Gophers because that's how many we should have had last week with Trickett's misses. And then was going to go 10 for Bowling Green.
All right. Wyatt?
I'm going to say 31-17. I'm a little less optimistic, but I just think that we tend to play fairly close games, no matter who the opponent is. So I'm going to try not to set the bar too high here.
Yeah. Personally, for me, I am foreseeing like you give up an early touchdown, and then you hold them, and then they get like 2 more field goals, like for the rest of the game, sprinkled in there somewhere. And then on offense, I mean, like I don't think Bowling Green's gonna be seeing the ball that much. I think you're gonna be seeing like 40 plus minutes of possession time for the Gophers.
Yeah, I'm thinking. Yeah,
I was just gonna say I kind of foresee the Gophers in a way going up like 2-3 touchdowns, kind of like Miami of Ohio, and then kind of slowly like they put in some second, third stringers, and they kind of slowly get a touchdown from it, but then the Gophers just run the clock out by just feeding the ball to our 6 running backs that can clearly play a little bit.
Yeah, I was going to say it's time to see what Kai can do. We want to see if these guys are the 2 and 3 that we want to deal with moving forward. Put the ball in their hands 10, 15 times this game.
Yeah,
and I don't think any of these smaller teams like Bowling Green are really ever going to be ready for the amount of running that the Big Ten will feed will like throw in their face. Like I'm sure
Yeah.
both line isn't full of. I mean, I don't know, but I'm sure it's not full of 300, 320 pound guys that just sit at nose tackle and try to stuff the run. I think they're a little bit more agile, and our offensive line will clearly just overpower them and dominate the line of scrimmage, giving the running backs, 2-3 yards in front of the line to make their moves.
Yeah. And I will say,
go ahead, Jason.
my predictions actually, I know I don't like this, but I'm going to say 38-7. That they're going to score a touchdown late in the game when we have our second or third stringers in the game. But I'm saying 38-7, and we'll.
Jeez.
Yeah.
Yeah, Griff, to your point, I just looked up Bowling Green's starting defensive line. It's 6'2", 235, 6'3", 275, 6'2", 302, and 6'4", 280.
So they got one 300-pounder.
It's their nose tackle.
All right. Well, I mean, still that kind of fits somewhat exactly what I was thinking. But I see a lot of open holes on the line. Hopefully that.
Yeah. Ideally for me, you're sitting Trey Potts by like midway through the third quarter, because I think you want him fresh for Purdue. And
you want to give him a lot of touches, even in the first half. You want to spread those touches around.
I think they'll ride him pretty hard the first half until they get up about 3 scores, and then once that happens, I think they'll just sit him. Like once he gets to 20, 25 carries, let's say, and I think that's easily doable in the first 2.5 quarters with the way this game I think is going to be called. Like whatever the Vegas betting line is for rushing attempts this week, just bet the over. Whatever it is, it's not high enough. They're going to run the ball like at least 45 times. It's going to be miserable for me to watch because the offensive coordinator drives me nuts sometimes, but that's a different conversation. But I think by midway through the third and the fourth quarter, you want to see Bucko Irving, Kai Thomas out there, and you want to figure out going into Purdue who's going to be the solid number 2 guy, because that rotation is going to need to be really solidified going into Purdue, because once you get into Big Ten play, you got to start feeding your receivers more. You're not going to be able to get away. I think they're in a really lucky position here because they can get away with feeding their running backs this way against this team and the last team before this to figure out this depth at this position before the Big Ten season, because Ottman Bell, Dalen Wright, Daniel Jackson, those are your receivers. You know what you have there. Brevin Spanford's your pass catcher tight end. You know what you have in your 4 pass catching targets. So you're not really worried about that at all this game. I think this is a big game to figure out what you're going to do with your running back room come Big Ten play.
Yep, totally agree.
I tried. I was sitting at the game next to actually Clay Patterson, tight end coach's wife, and I really tried, guys, to try to get more time in. I said, hey, can you convince Coach to get more Brevin time? We need a couple more matches. And she's like, oh my God, trust me, we love him. We want more. He's trying his hardest to get more. And I'm like, okay, good. That's at least all I need, that, our boy Coach Clay Patterson has his back and wants to get him more touches. So I know Ford stands, and we want to see him break out. And
Please,
I hope
Brevin.
Hope we get that. Hope we can get him a tutty.
I really think they just don't want to put him on tape before the Big Ten season.
That is totally a PJ thing to do as well.
That's legit what I think it is, because they've been using him to block so much, and then you saw it against, I think it was Miami, and I don't think they wanted to run this play at all. It was like the little fake check and go wheel that they ran to the right side. It was towards the open end zone, and he had like that really nice gain, almost rumbled in for the touchdown. And it was just like a little play action. You fake the block and you slip out. into space. And I think the game was a little closer than they wanted it to be at that point, and they dialed that one up. I do not think they wanted to call that within the first 3-4 games.
And see, that's what I was explaining too. I was like, we need him disguised as a 6th, 7th lineman, and he needs to break off. And if we're inside the 5, he just runs a little crossing route over the middle. No one's gonna cover him because they don't think they're gonna ever pass to him. Boom.
Yeah, run him right up the seam off the line.
Yep.
Beautiful. I legit think that's what they're doing. I just think it'd be so funny.
Because I think when he scored a touchdown against Illinois, I don't know if it was last year or 2 years ago, wasn't that kind of like the same thing? It was like kind of a wheel route.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was toward the open end zone to the left. They passed, it was right there in the back of the end zone.
Yeah, I mean, he's very dynamic, and I think he will be used in the passing game. But right now, when you watch the tape on the Gophers, you're worried about 7, 16, 9, and 3, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I think they're just holding on to that one, right?
Yeah. And I know our podcast team in particular love to praise, that Brevin Spanford is that, tight end like TJ Hawkinson and Noah Fant that from Iowa that moved on to the NFL, and they're doing, tight end things over there in the NFL. But I do want to mention too, Ko Kieft, who is a senior at the tight end position, also a great blocker at that position as well. But he has caught some touchdowns and passes too. So I'd say I know we like to hype up Brevin, but I think that tight end room in general with Ko and Brevin being the most veteran members of that roster group on the offense, maybe we'll see more of Brevin when Big Ten play comes, but I wouldn't sit on Ko Kieft if he can convert those 4th down passes or red zone catches and for a touchdown. So don't count him out too.
Did you all see that highlight of him pancaking the Colorado?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Good. I'm just making sure because I know that caught the eye of a lot of people, and his value all comes in blocking. I think. I mean, it's great that we.
Big boy, man. He doesn't mess around.
I used to see him in the gym at the rec, like getting a lift in randomly, and my lord, was it terrifying.
Dude, he wants to be a strength coach after he leaves.
I can't wait until he signs a UDFA deal with the Baltimore Ravens next year. I can't wait. It has to it would be so perfect. Like it would just be it's just perfect.
Him and Bateman. Yes.
Yes.
Well, just think of him
Lamar.
like lead blocking for Lamar. That'd be so crazy.
Oh, hopefully.
Who's a running back when you're Lamar Jackson and Ko Kieft?
No, talking about games though, Thursday night football, right? Was that the Ravens against Chiefs?
Oh, that was Sunday night.
That was Sunday night.
Oh yeah, Sunday night. That game was lit.
That was supposed to be our boy Bateman's debut. We were robbed.
Oh, and he's on. I think he's on IR, right?
Yeah, he'll be back in like a couple weeks, I think.
Yeah, but yeah, no, that was a fun game to watch. Even Thursday night was last week was
Giants, right?
Yeah, that was a close game too. Taylor Heineke balled out, so did Daniel Jones. And then of course Monday night was close. Lions kept it close, but they let the game away because Jared Goff just threw picks and fumbles during that game.
And Rodgers gonna Rodgers.
Taylor Heineke got a massive bonus for winning that Washington game.
Yeah,
good for him.
Yeah,
but, him hard. Like I want him harder, man.
Yeah.
Well, actually, this is a perfect segue to other things. Now they wrapped up previewing Bowling Green. Anything interesting or stuff that we've seen during the NFL stuff or other college football stuff or even takes
this
before we wrap
weekend?
up? Either this weekend or previous week or the previous weekend. I will say though, some of the top teams of the nation, like Alabama, barely squeaked out their win. Not barely, but like they had to squeak out their win. Ohio State struggling, especially on the defensive side of the ball. Clemson and their quarterback is not having a great time. Some of those programs are struggling. Not like they're not going to like not be great. They're already great.
Mm-hmm.
They'll be great by the end of the season. Like
Mm-hmm.
good record. But I think like what we're seeing from Penn State right now, beating Auburn despite what the fuck was it? Punting on third down, even though the refs
That was
from SC
incredible.
thought it was
That
fourth
was
down.
that was incredible.
I was like, holy hell, what the hell that was going on with that?
Yeah, amazing.
Griffin and I mentioned off air, freaking Rutgers is 3-0.
That's what I'm talking about, bro. I'm here for it.
Greg Schiano doing Greg Schiano things at Rutgers like he did in the past. And like, I know we talked about off air, but like, they're gonna have a rough Big Ten schedule coming up. 3 ranked teams for the next 3 games.
Oh, it's not as rough as Nebraska's schedule, man.
You know what? Like we all thought they were going to get blown out this weekend, and that Frost was going to get fired. But they hung in there.
Yeah,
It was only 7 points.
They held their own against Oklahoma, which is really surprising, and it's a positive thing for them to take forward.
I think Oklahoma is severely overrated this year. I do not think Spencer Rattler is that good.
That's also fair.
no,
I don't get it. I don't understand it.
Yeah, when I like the first, the first game of the season, I was like, is this really the same Spencer Rattler we saw last year? And then they continued from there, and then their defense isn't being Big 12 defense as well. So I was like, yeah. Like right now, the current AP poll, I don't agree with. Maybe for some teams, like of course Iowa slaughtering everybody right now. And I know I think there was a meme when week 1 ended. They're like, you lost to fucking Spencer Petras.
They've been doing that for 2 seasons.
I know. And before that, Nate Stanley, and before that, who was it?
Well, it was before Nate Stanley.
He was at the 49ers, I think.
CJ Beathard.
CJ Beathard.
Yeah,
Yeah.
CJ Beathard.
Right now, actually, he's the backup to Trevor Lawrence.
Huh.
Oh.
I mean,
Alright.
Spencer Rattler's what? So he's 74 for 99, 761 yards, 7 touchdowns, 2 picks, 7.7 yards per attempt, 8.2 air yards per attempt. Like, it's fine.
I'm talking about a 75% completion percentage.
Yeah, but I
Yeah.
mean, in that offense, you're gonna have those high completion percentage because it's all schemed up for you, and there's just so many easy completions within that
Sure.
offense.
It's also the question of who they played.
Yeah.
They have played. What is
Like-
this?
Like Nebraska
What is this?
isn't a great team right now, but they kept it. They hung in there. So,
They've played Tulane, Western Carolina, and Nebraska.
yeah.
So the best team they've played is Nebraska,
Tulane they beat by 15.
and he's only completing 75% of his passes.
I mean, their schedule's soft. If you look at like Oklahoma's schedule, the rest of the way.
Yeah.
West Virginia, K-State, perennial powerhouse Texas, Texas Christian, Kansas, another perennial powerhouse, Texas Tech, Baylor, Iowa State is like their one probably hard game, and then Oklahoma State.
Well, let's hope Iowa State beats them.
Matt
I don't
Campbell,
know.
let's go.
I just don't think he's that good. It's whatever.
Yeah. But let's see.
Other than that, I guess my hot take of the week would be O'Keefe fullback touchdown.
Hell yes.
I think it's
yes, I'll take
coming.
that.
I think they line up in that heavy package they like, and they motion like he's coming across the line, and he does that thing where they like kind of fall back into the like split eye, and they just hand it to him on the goal line.
Oh hell yeah.
They
I
got to
still-
give him one. They got to give him one this weekend. I think it's going to be their best chance to get him one.
I still remember
What a wildcat to Kieft.
Wildcat.
What
Yeah.
about?
I'm just worried his hands are like bricks, and that the minute the football snapped to him, it's just bouncing right off.
Yeah. Or I don't mind if you give it to Daniel Faalele because he played rugby prior to playing football. And I remember he had the big man touchdown during the COVID spring game.
Yeah.
Too. Was running into the end zone with a heavy package. So
That's why I'm using O'Keefe instead, because it's here.
Yeah, I want a big man touchdown, please. One of the big men, please.
Yeah.
But
I think we'll see something wacky on Saturday.
yeah. I don't really have a hot take. I don't know if this is a hot take. I think the East this year is not going to be Ohio State taking the crown. I think it's either going to be a different program, either it's Penn State or Michigan State, the way how they're going so far.
You don't think it's Michigan?
And Jim Harbaugh has not won against Ohio State during his entire tenure so far.
Also, his record against ranked opponents is yes.
Yeah, so unless Jim Harbaugh can prove me wrong, I'm seeing a 7-5 or 8-4 record with Michigan this regular season. But
so you think that Michigan is ranked too high at 19? Is that what you're telling me? That we overvalue Michigan in the same way that we might be overvaluing Oklahoma?
Yeah, maybe. But I'm saying it's not Michigan or Ohio State taking the top. It's gonna be Michigan State or Penn State. So go State.
Does Harbaugh get fired?
I think he quits before he gets fired and takes an NFL job again or takes a different program. And it's not going to be USC. Hell no.
He's not going to get a different program. If he's going to leave, he's going to take an NFL job.
Yep. And right now, who's on the hot seat? Mike Zimmer.
I don't think he's not necessarily on the hot seat, but he's definitely getting looked at.
Yeah, getting
Mike
toasted.
Zimmer? Mike Zimmer's been getting looked at every season for the last,
3 years?
But they're not going to pull the plug on him yet.
Yeah. If they do, I think the Wills will get rid of him like end of the season and then find someone else because he does have a big contract too as a coach, which is
Yeah, didn't he just get extended?
Like a year, yeah, last year he got extended because like that was the year when they hired McCarthy, the coach for Dallas. There was a rumor going that Dallas, if Zimmer got fired, they'll hire Zimmer to take over at the Cowboys, and the Vikings may have potentially promoted promote current Browns head coach Kevin Stefanski to the head coaching job, being the young offensive mind thing.
That have went really well.
Yeah, and now
that have been really good.
Yeah, the Browns went to the playoffs and beat the Steelers and barely lost or had a close game against Kansas City. And then, of course, they're struggling right now. They're 0-2, I believe, or 1-1.
Cleveland?
Yeah, they're 0-2, right?
Yeah, I think they won last week, didn't they?
So they won last week.
Oh, they won last week. Yeah, they're 1-1, and they're
they lost to Kansas City in a game that they probably should not have lost. Ended up kind of.
Yeah,
it was a really weird ending to that game. They beat the Texans by 10 last week.
Yeah, got it. Thanks. But
to be fair to the Texans, Tyrod Taylor's hurt.
Yeah.
Hey, my boy Brandon Cooks is going off though. That's all I need.
For your fantasy?
Yep, exactly.
Man, the only thing I'm looking forward to on Sunday is the start of the Justin Fields era.
Yeah, for real. It took forever.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think they wanted to do it before this, but
you promise it to Andy Dalton week 1, then you hold true to that promise. You can say to players who hit the market, "Hey, we're gonna make promises to you, and we're gonna keep them."
Yeah. I don't really think anyone in the NFL, as long as Andy Dalton has been, really believes that. It's a business, and it's about winning at the end of the day, and I think Andy knows where he's at in his career.
I mean, Andy's not going to get to start that back if Fields performs.
Listen, I think Andy Dalton will be just fine making $10 million to hold a clipboard. I think that'll be fine for him.
Actually, then, Soup, my question is, do you think Pace and or Nagy gets fired?
Absolutely not.
Okay.
I think the minute they traded up to get Justin Fields they bought themselves this year at least.
Okay.
I think next year is going to be the big evaluation year for them. Personally, this I guess might be a hot take. I like Ryan Pace. I don't understand the hatred for him that a lot of Bears fans especially have. I think if you look up and down the roster and you think about where it was before he came in, it's a completely different team than it was when we went 4-12 the year before he came in. And I mean, like, everyone's always like, oh, blah, he sucks, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, okay, well, let's look at this team right now. You got Roquan Smith, Hakeem Hicks, Bilal Nichols, Khalil Mack, Eddie Jackson. And then on offense, you have James Daniels, Cody Whitehair. Jermaine Ifedi's playing well at right tackle, which is super weird.
You drafted Cole Kmet, a tight end.
Cole Kmet.
Yeah.
Solid player. David Montgomery looks unreal. Trade up to grab Justin Fields, Allen Robinson, great free agent signing, Darnell Mooney. Like, okay, like, I don't know. People's like, oh, but you missed on Trubisky. Okay, everybody missed on Trubisky. Everyone had that wrong. Literally every single person was wrong.
If I have to say, though, Pace's thing on his resume that's going to, I think, content for the rest of his career is going to be that trade up for Mitch Trubisky. But I think, as you said, though, he had like,
trade up.
I think every NFL GM has like one or two things that they really effed up on. In the case when I think about the Vikings, I have many things about Rick Spielman because, you know, following this team for quite a few years now, I just think he never got the offensive line right. Like
I mean, the Packers
got the offensive line right.
Yeah. The Packers just cut a tight end. They drafted a pick before Terry McLaurin.
Yeah, I saw that.
Like, I would much rather have a guy like Pace who says, this is my guy, I'm going to get him, than, you know, like someone who sits back and, like, you know, just kind of lets everything happen and come to them.
Yeah.
I would much rather have a guy with the conviction that he has to go after the guys that he likes. Yeah, when it blows up hard in your face. But when it works out, sometimes you trade up for Justin Fields at 11, and it worked, and that is great.
Especially at pick 11. Damn.
And I was in Chicago when that happened.
Ooh, it must have been a lit time.
I was in the airport. I was so they're doing construction at O'Hare, and
they always are.
Yep, and it was awful. It's like completely gridlocked at baggage claim, and this is the first time I've seen my parents post-COVID. Like, this is the first time vaccinated, you know, wore mask on the plane, first time flying, you know. I'm finally back in Chicago. I'm watching the draft on my phone as I'm walking through the airport going to get my bag, and now I'm down in baggage claim, and I look down at my phone. It's like pick 9, you know, the Eagles are on the clock, whatever. You know, and because, like, the Eagles traded up to 9 or 10. They traded up to 10 with Dallas.
And they drafted a receiver.
Yeah, and I was like, okay, they're not taking a quarterback here. Like, once he slipped past Denver at 9, I was like...
Yeah, they went Patrick Surtain.
They went Surtain. I was like, oh, this is interesting. Because I thought Denver was going to be the trade spot because you have that relationship with Vic Fangio. But then he goes to 10, and Dallas trades back. Eagles trade up, and I'm like, okay, well, they're not picking a quarterback here. They like Jalen Hurts, so do I, and they really need another receiver. So they're going Devonta here. So they do, and then I'm walking through the airport, and it's completely gridlocked trying to get out of baggage claim. And so I'm literally like walking through traffic with my bag, staring down at my phone, walking between these cars, following my dad who's looking for my mom in this bumper-to-bumper traffic trying to get out of O'Hare in the middle of the street. And all of a sudden, I look down at my phone, and it says the Bears are on the clock. And I was like, what just happened? And my phone is blowing up. I'm getting all these texts like, what is happening? Oh my God, is it happening? Is it happening? And then I had like this moment of panic, and I was just like, Matt Nagy, I swear to God, if you pick Mac Jones, I am going to freak out. I will drive to Lake Forest, to Hallis Hall. I will find you during the draft, and I will end you. and then the Justin Fields pick comes across the screen, and the entire everybody who was outside just started going nuts. People were honking their horn. It was crazy. It was so nutty. Like some random dude high-fived me and hugged me. He was like, "You watching the draft?" And I was like, "Yeah." It was so wild.
I bet.
Yeah, I don't know. It's gonna be an interesting Sunday.
It is going to be interesting. I'm excited for this upcoming Sunday, but unfortunately, gentlemen, we are out of time. We're way over our usual time limit. But for our fans
Yeah, I tend to
listening,
do that.
yeah, our fans listening in or watching our podcast today, thank you so much. Again, we'll be excited to see you at. If you're coming to homecoming, we may see you at homecoming this weekend. If not, we'll see you at other Gopher games. But if not, stay tuned for more episodes from Open Podcast. But again, I'm one of your hosts, Jason O, along with
Griffin Most.
Wyatt Okers. I don't think it came through Wyatt. And then our special guest today, Soup.
Thanks for having me on, guys. It was a ton of fun.
Yeah, no problem. Well, again, everyone, thank you for your time, and we'll see you next time. Have a good night. Bye. Oh.